Hello there, Homeschool Nolan here to help you navigate learning in the digital age. Today I'd like to share with you some of the things I've learned this past year as a brand new homeschooling parent and how I've come to realize that now is the time for homeschooling. This past year has certainly been a crazy year for everyone. The pandemic has disrupted our lives in so many ways. When the lockdowns due to COVID began back in March 2020, it forced every parent, whether they were ready to or not, to become homeschooling parents. We all had to rethink how we wanted to educate our kids. And when fall came around, even though the schools in our district opened up, they were only open for remote learning. This meant our kids still had to stay at home. It was then that we asked ourselves, should we continue teaching our kids at home? Or should we do remote learning and let a teacher teach them from a computer screen? It was then that we decided that now is the time for homeschooling. Now, even before the pandemic hit, the idea of homeschooling has always intrigued me. I've been alive during an era of rapid technological advancement, particularly in the area of computers. And yes, I'm old enough to remember what a typewriter is and how I always used to have to go to the library to do research for school reports. But today, our smartphones, tablets, and laptops give us cheap and unlimited access to information. You can learn just about anything online these days. Or can you? While computers give us instant access to information, they do not give us cheap and unlimited education. So what is the difference? Well, when I Googled the definition of education, one definition I found was this. Education is, quote, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. So a key word here is that it's a process, something that's ongoing. It's not something you can consume like a video clip. It's something you receive, meaning someone has to deliver or give it to you. It's systematic, carefully planned, and thought out. So if we take this definition of education, we can begin to understand why it's so expensive. You can't just hand a 5-year-old a tablet on phonics and ask them to learn to read. You could probably hand a 13-year-old a copy of Shakespeare and ask them to read it, but they probably won't fully appreciate the meaning and importance of Shakespeare without a discussion led by a good teacher who really knows Shakespeare. Learning, especially in the early years, requires a real teacher. Kids need a teacher, not just to dispense information, but also to coach, encourage, and mentor, and also to provide feedback. For over 100 years, public education in America was designed to provide teachers who could do just that. The teachers in our schools are there to teach, guide, encourage, and provide feedback. The education system as we've known it was also designed to prepare a mass population for an industrial economy. But we are now well into the information age, and some will argue that we are now entering a newer, more complex age dominated by artificial intelligence and automation. And the problems inherent in our public education system started to show up well before the year 2020. The first obvious problem is that it doesn't do a great job in accounting for each child's unique strengths and differences. The system is designed to be a one-size-fits-all, where 20 to 30 kids sitting in a classroom all have to learn at the same pace. Now, you could try to place your child in better schools, but the quality of your school, unfortunately, really depends on where you live or how much money you have. Ideally, parents who know and love their kids better than anyone should be the ones teaching their kids, at least when they're young. But the reality is, not every parent is equipped to be a teacher. Many families need both parents working just to survive. And teaching is a skill or talent that, quite frankly, not everyone has. It requires not just knowledge or expertise of a subject matter, but it also requires emotional skills like patience, empathy, and understanding. So the fact that most parents have to work and that teaching is very difficult are both important barriers to homeschooling. And another thing to consider, we also wanted our kids to be able to make friends in school and be a part of the community. For these reasons, we at first decided early on to send our kids to public school. But then the pandemic hit, and everything changed. First, it forced families to become homeschoolers whether they wanted to or not. And as fall came around, the schools in our district opened up, but with remote learning only. The challenge we found was that after months of homeschooling, every child was now at a different stage of learning. This made it difficult to put our kid back in a classroom with 30 other kids starting at the same point and learning at the same pace again. And with the schools going fully remote, we lost what we felt was one of the main benefits of public education, and that is socialization. Our kids would still be at home, unable to make friends in the schoolyard or develop bonds with a teacher in the classroom. So that's when we decided that now is the time for homeschooling. Now, I will admit, I am one of the fortunate tech workers who, at least for now, can continue to work from home. But it's still very challenging for me to find time on weekends or evenings or between meetings to teach and tutor my child. I am fortunate that my wife is able to manage most of our kids' schooling. So I will have to say that homeschooling is still not yet for everyone, especially for families where both parents need to work full-time. But if you do decide to take the plunge into homeschooling, like we did, I believe that there has never been a better time to do so. First, technology now gives us unlimited access to information and learning materials. A generation ago, the public library was probably the best source of learning outside of school. Today, of course, we have the internet and videos on just about any topic you want to learn. Books can also be ordered online or in a bookstore. What this means is that the parent no longer has to carry the burden of learning all sorts of facts and knowledge to teach their kids. The parent is now more of a coach than a teacher. The parent's main job is to choose from many different curriculum and learning materials out there, and these can be books or online videos or other types of materials. Once they've chosen these learning materials, the parent's other main job, in my opinion, is then to instill discipline and a regular routine of studying and a lifelong love of learning. Now, secondly, in addition to the wealth of learning materials out there, the fact that there are more families doing homeschooling now makes it easier for everyone. No longer do you have to feel like you and your kids are alone in your neighborhood. When the schools in our neighborhood reopened in the fall, we discovered that other families had decided to homeschool too. So what we've done is we joined up with other families in our neighborhood to form learning pods, where we meet up to 5 days a week, with each parent taking turns teaching different subjects. Each parent can pick subjects they feel good at teaching and take turns teaching. These neighborhood learning pods also provide the socialization and interaction with other kids that I believe kids still need. And I know it may not be true in every neighborhood, but in my neighborhood and my city, where we have lots of families with school-age kids, there's now an entire industry of small businesses and private tutors catered to teaching kids in all kinds of subjects, either in person or remotely. My kids today are not only learning just reading, writing, and arithmetic, they're also learning history, art, and music with at least 5 different parent teachers and tutors. And when the pandemic hopefully dies down, we intend and look forward to expanding their learning by taking them on field trips to museums, parks, and historical sites. Now, in closing, you may be still sitting on the fence like we were on homeschooling, and it still may or may not be right for you and your family, depending on your situation. But if having more influence over your child's curriculum appeals to you, and if you do have the time resources to spend with your child, then I believe that there's never been a better time to homeschool. The technology is there. The pandemic has removed much of the stigma of keeping your kids at home. And with more parents making this decision, it's now easier than ever to find a network of homeschooling families to support each other. And if you do decide to homeschool, you will not only be in the company of some of your neighbors, but you'll also be in the company of some of history's greatest minds. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Edison both only received about a year of formal schooling? You could say that they were homeschooled. They both had a passion for learning, Now, not everyone can be like Lincoln or Edison, but everyone, in my opinion, can learn to learn from home. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.